Hey, welcome to FISM News. I'm Samuel Case.
I'm Renata Kiss.
And tonight, new details emerge about the Trump assassination attempt in Pennsylvania.
Meanwhile, Ukraine targets Russia's infrastructure.
And Ford becomes the latest company to end its DEI policies. All right, let's start with the assassination attempt, where the FBI shared new details yesterday in its ongoing probe of the shooting of former President Donald Trump. A senior FBI official told reporters that gunman Matthew Crooks was planning an attack months ahead of the Pennsylvania rally, where he ultimately shot and wounded Trump and also killed a rally-goer. Crooks had apparently searched online for events related to both Trump and President Biden, but saw the Trump rally as a, quote, target of opportunity once it was officially announced. That same FBI official also said after nearly 1,000 interviews, the FBI now has a, quote, clear idea of Crooks's mindset, but said the Bureau is, quote, not ready to make any conclusive statements regarding a motive at this time. Now, this news comes amid growing criticism of the FBI's handling of the investigation itself. This includes their decision to clean the roof where Crooks ultimately took the shot and the decision to cremate his body before it could be examined. SWAT countersniper Ben Schaefer, who was at the rally where the shooting took place, he said these decisions were, quote, odd as they could have ended up destroying evidence.
And it also seems like the former president just can't catch a break from controversial incidents. This time, his campaign team's presence at Arlington Cemetery ruffled some feathers. On Monday, Donald Trump visited Arlington Cemetery to honor the 13 fallen soldiers who were killed during the Kabul airport bombing in 2021. However, when Trump's team was taking photos and videos of the event, they were confronted by a cemetery official. NPR and the Trump campaign shared similar accounts of a mild physical altercation between the Republican team and the official. Following the incident, Arlington Cemetery said in a statement that any creation of political campaign-related content at Army National Military cemeteries was prohibited by federal law. In response, Trump shared a statement from the victims' families, who said he and his team conducted themselves with the utmost respect and dignity. Here's a short video showing Trump at the event.
We lost 13 great people. What a horrible day it was. We didn't lose one person in 18 months. And then they took over that disaster, the leaving of Afghanistan.
Trump campaign manager Chris LaCivita called the cemetery officials' physical blocking of their team a disgrace when the former president was specifically invited to the event.
At the same time, Trump critics are also looking to revive attacks on his running mate J.D. Vance over his criticism of childless Democrats, who he referred to mockingly as childless cat ladies in a recent interview. Yesterday, CNN played a montage of Vance's comments, including a new clip of him targeting Teachers Union President Randy Weingarten.
So many of the leaders of the left, and I hate to be so personal about this, but they're people without kids trying to brainwash the minds of our children. If she wants to brainwash and destroy the minds of children, she should have some of her own and leave ours the hell alone. We should care about declining fertility, not just because it's bad for our economy, but because we think babies are good. And we think babies are good because we're not sociopaths. Why have we let the Democrat Party become controlled by people who don't have children?
Now, Vance has repeatedly said his comments aren't intended for people who want to have kids but just can't for various reasons, but rather political leaders who are childless by choice. Democrats have weaponized those comments by Vance, labeling him as weird because of his beliefs. Meanwhile, Vance is standing by his comments.
Do you regret making that comment?
Look, I regret certainly that a lot of people took it the wrong way, and I certainly regret that the DNC and Kamala Harris lied about it.
But do you regret what you said, Senator?
Look, Kristen, I'm going to say things from time to time that people disagree with. I'm a real person. I'm going to make jokes. I'm going to say things sarcastically, and I think that what's important is that we focus on the policy.
And still in politics here, as presidential candidate Kamala Harris and VP candidate Tim Walz gear up for tonight's interview on CNN, Harris's unwillingness to interview by herself has garnered major backlash from conservatives. The 9 p.m. Eastern Time event will be hosted by Dana Bash, CNN's chief political correspondent and anchor. Bash is known for frequently interviewing Harris and displaying partisan bias toward Democrats. But most of the criticism is directed at Harris. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley's communications director, Abigail Jackson, said on X she wants to be commander-in-chief and she's too scared to do an interview without Tim Walz by her side. Jackson sarcastically added, "Girl power, am I right?" Sean Davis from The Federalist called Harris embarrassing for not being able to talk to CNN by herself. And the National Review's Jeff Behar said Harris simply cannot be left unattended. Even CNN pointed out that Harris has so far been heavy on vibes but light on concrete policy, while recounting her gaffes during past interviews. The outlet said tonight's a chance for her to rectify that performance.
That it is, and we'll have to see how she does. We'll report on that tomorrow here on FISM News. And of course, Tim Walz, meanwhile, he's not being spared from criticism either, as now dozens of congressional military veterans, all of them Republicans, have issued a scathing letter rebuking the Minnesota governor for lying about his military service. That letter specifically attacks Walz for claiming to be a retired command sergeant major. That is a position he did in fact hold while serving in the National Guard, but he failed to complete the requirements actually needed to retire with the title. Still, that hasn't stopped Walz from claiming the title for decades.
As a retired Sergeant Major in the Army National Guard out of Minnesota.
Retired out as Command Sergeant Major.
I spent 24 years in the military, Congressman, as a Command Sergeant Major.
Tim Walz is one of those everyday people. Coach to the state champs. Teacher of the Year. Command Sergeant Major.
What I consider to be the responsibility and the privilege of being the highest ranking enlisted personnel ever to serve in Congress. And I'm the Democrats.
What rank was that?
Command Sergeant Major.
Now, according to the Minnesota National Guard, Walz actually retired as a master sergeant. The letter also criticized Walz for claiming to have carried weapons, quote, in war, despite the fact he's never actually served in a combat zone. The letter said, quote, "Until you admit you lied, there is no way you can be trusted to serve as vice president."
And lastly, before a break here, RFK Jr.'s ex-running mate, Nicole Shanahan, condemned the Democratic Party over their treatment of Kennedy. Shanahan appeared in a Fox News interview this week, saying Democratic Party members lost their soul as they sink to new lows.
This is wild. I'm asking myself what happened to the party of when they go low, we go high. Because right now they're just going lower and lower and lower. And I'm shocked. I'm saddened. I'm worried for them, honestly. They've lost their soul. They've lost their direction.
She added that if the Democrats wanted to pick a target, they should have picked better.
You know, if you're going to pick a target, you got to pick it a little bit better. Robert F. Kennedy is one of the kindest human beings I've had the pleasure to get to know. He said it the other day. He's like, I don't have a bone of revenge in my body. This is somebody who's been attacked over years now from all different angles. Bobby shows up with grace every time.
She also recounted Kennedy's words regarding these attacks. She said, quote, "When I joined this campaign, he said, you're going to get attacked in ways you would have never expected. But just remember, every attack is a signal from God. Show up with kindness." All right, and on that note, up next we'll get to some updates on the war in Gaza and so much more. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Aisha. At first, I was debating whether or not I was really pregnant and took a test. While I was waiting, they talked to me about different pregnancy choices and different options and information that helped me be more educated. To confirm, I got an ultrasound of the pregnancy test, and it was for sure positive, and I got to hear and see my baby for the first time. Hearing the heartbeat made me cry, and it was certain that I was going to keep my baby forever.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Fear and uncertainty can cause us to hold things tightly and rely on ourselves. But during uncertain times, as believers in Christ, we are called to surrender fully to our sovereign God. Learn a biblically responsible investment strategy proven over 25 years. Keep the money God has entrusted to you out of companies that participate in things that God detests. Fully surrender. Become a Financial Issues Partner today.
Welcome back to FISM News. I'm Renata Kiss. Well, according to a new report from the U.S. Agency for International Development, President Joe Biden forced the launch of a failed Gaza aid pier despite warnings from experts. A newly released report from the organization's Inspector General read in part, quote, multiple U.S. aid staff expressed concerns that the focus on using JLOTs would detract from the agency's advocacy for opening land crossings, which were seen as more efficient and proven methods of transporting aid into Gaza. A separate statement released by the Department of Defense also noted that analysts had acknowledged the risks of using the pier. According to the department, analysts knew from the beginning that there would be challenges as part of this complex emergency. In addition to ignoring the warnings, the U.S. aid report accused the White House of failing to honor commitments it made to the UN in distributing aid to Gaza residents. Although the U.S. had promised to place a pier in northern Gaza, central Gaza is where the pier was ultimately located.
And looking at the situation in Israel now, where Israel did launch airstrikes and raids in multiple West Bank cities yesterday in what might be its largest military operation in the territory in 20 years. As of this morning, Israel says they've now killed 15 Hamas terrorists. Israel's top diplomat, Israel Katz, compared West Bank cities to the war in Gaza, saying they must deal with the threat. The Palestinian Authority has since called the raids a serious escalation, while Hamas is urging Palestinians in the territory to fight back. This comes as the Biden administration recently imposed new sanctions on an Israeli security group operating inside the West Bank. Officials say they provided support to a previously sanctioned outpost. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the actions, saying there would be a, quote, pointed discussion with the U.S.
And the United Nations Security Council is demanding a halt to cross-border attacks between Lebanon's Hezbollah and Israeli forces. The council unanimously approved a resolution yesterday that warned against further escalation that could lead to a widespread conflict. The document also renews the UN peacekeeping force in Lebanon for another year. Israel's new ambassador, Danny Danon, issued a stark warning to the Lebanese people ahead of the vote, urging them to confront Hezbollah before a war begins.
I have a message for the Lebanese people. You and your government have a choice to make. Confront Hezbollah today or watch as your country is dragged into chaos and destruction. The time for action is now. Do not let Hezbollah and Iran dictate your future.
He also criticized the UN for allowing Hezbollah to gain a foothold in Lebanon, highlighting terrorist rocket launch sites around 60 miles from peacekeeper bases. He later told Fox News that if the UN continues to fail to implement its own resolution, then Israel will have to step in.
And keeping with the tensions in the Middle East, where the Houthis are now allowing tugboats to reach a Greek-owned oil tanker that is currently on fire in the Red Sea, thereby hoping to avoid a natural disaster of their own making as the terrorists attacked that tanker on August 21st, forcing its crew to abandon ship when it caught on fire. It was carrying an estimated 1 million barrels of crude oil at the time. Shipping officials warn a spill would be among the largest on record, and in fact, some reports even do suggest suggest the oil is already leaking, though that's not been confirmed at this time. The Houthis have threatened to attack previous efforts to save the ship.
And now for some updates from Ukraine. The country's officials are saying they struck a Russian oil depot yesterday. A source from the Ukrainian military intelligence told the Kyiv Independent that the oil tanks went up in flames at the FDKU Atlas oil facility early Wednesday morning, just outside the border of Ukraine. A Russian Telegram channel then reported that 2 drones attacked the facility about an hour later. There were no reports of any injuries or deaths. Now, this comes as Ukraine has stepped up its attacks on Russian oil facilities this month as part of its new offensive. The Ukrainian military attacked another oil tank in the Rostov region, which was still burning yesterday. Russia responded by increasing its drone and missile attacks on Ukraine, destroying civilian infrastructure across the nation and reaching even the capital.
And we do have a quick update to a story we've been covering quite a bit this week. That is, Telegram CEO Pavel Durov faces wide-ranging charges in France over crimes committed on his social media app. Authorities arrested him over the weekend and have since charged him with refusing to cooperate with law enforcement. Prosecutors say he has a pattern of ignoring requests from police investigating criminal activity on the app. Again, it's Telegram. He's also accused of being complicit in his users' crimes, including things like illegal transactions, drug trafficking, and distributing child sex abuse material. Durov is a free speech advocate. He argues that privacy should ultimately trump security concerns. He has posted bail for over $5 million and is barred from leaving the country. Okay, and we have plenty more news to get to up next. We'll be right back after a moment in history.
Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm Seth Udinsky. Tonight, let's go back and explore one of the most interesting but often overlooked categories of history. We often explore people or battles or nations, but rarely do we take a look at physical pieces of history, such as churches or famous homes or castles or natural landmarks. Today, let's dive into a physical piece of history in England that goes all the way back to the early Middle Ages. Let's discover the story of St. Paul's Cathedral in London. Named after the famous apostle and author of nearly half of the books in the New Testament, the Cathedral of St. Paul has stood at the high point of the English capital of London for over 1,400 years. The original church was built in 604 AD by Bishop Mellitus of the Saxons. That original structure was lost in a fire later that century, and a second church was built in 675. This one survived until the 10th century when Viking raiders ransacked and destroyed it. A new St. Paul's, commissioned by the Normans in the High Middle Ages, took shape in the late 11th century and was finished in 1240 AD. In 1561, the spire of the church collapsed due to a lightning strike. One of the last and most memorable events in the medieval St. Paul's was in 1606, when 4 of the famed gunpowder plotters, insurrectionists who vainly attempted to blow up the English Parliament, were put to death in St. Paul's. The medieval St. Paul's was largely destroyed in the London Fire of 1666, and construction began on the present-day cathedral in 1675 and was completed in 1708. The church saw many deaths and celebrations throughout the modern age, including a celebration of peace at the end of World War I in 1918. But perhaps the most famous historical event involving St. Paul's happened during the German air raids of London during World War II. The church's grand dome could be seen rising above the ashes of the Luftwaffe bombers, and it became a symbol of English resilience during the war. The church miraculously survived World War II, and it continues to stand today as an official cathedral in the Anglican Church. It is both a symbol of English nationalism and, more importantly, a reminder of the great influence and victory of Christianity in Western civilization. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History.
Are you tired of the chaos? There are a lot of things that make noise, but only a few that truly matter. As a parent, I want to leave something that will last for a long time.
You invest $300 a month interest on slowly by the time you retire.
Not just an inheritance of money, but a legacy of godly values.
Here at Financial Issues, we want to help you grow your money, but our main goal is to help you honor God with the money that He's given you.
Invest your money in a God-honoring way. Go to financialissues.org.
I was sobbing. It was a cry for prayer for God. I'm so sorry, please. So I got on the internet and I just started seeing like abortion pill reversal, and I found a hotline number. We're gonna get this started. It's gonna seem like a lot, but it's gonna be so fast, and it's because you only have a certain amount of time left. It's gonna be okay. We got this. We're gonna try to fix this for you and make sure you know you're good and the baby's good. Don't worry. And when I came here, my heart was so warm. Other than Planned Parenthood, where I was very cold and I was lost, and I just felt like I could have been, it was just terrible. And to know that Compass Care could tell me something different and could reverse a medication like that, that's amazing. That somebody would go as hard as if it was their children to make sure your child is gonna be alive and stay safe. So I want a lot of people to know it's possible. You can save your baby. You can reverse that abortion.
Hey there, and welcome back to FISM News. I'm Samuel Case. Let's resume our coverage now with some new information regarding January 6th. FISM's Ian Patrick has those details.
At this point, there really should be a saying along the lines of another day, another bit of January 6th footage. News outlets yesterday shared clips of recently obtained footage from the 2021 riot, specifically from the perspective of former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The video footage was captured by her daughter Alexandra, who put together a documentary on the day for HBO. Some bits of the footage show how angry Pelosi was at how everything played out, expressing that Trump should, quote, pay a price for the January 6th riot.
You're done with Donald Trump. How does it feel? I just feel sick at what he did to the Capitol and to the country today. He's got to pay a price for that.
Another bit of footage shows her en route to the Capitol to make a statement following the riot. Planning her speech with some of her staffers by phone call, Pelosi opts to focus on Trump instead of calling for the resignation of congressional security officials.
Schumer just now a political breaking news alert that Schumer is going to fire the Senate Sergeant at Arms.
I don't even know who that is. Yeah.
But it's immaterial. The heads are rolling is what we're saying.
Well, I don't want to have it on a par with the insurrection and the impeachment and the rest of that. If they ask, I will respond, but I'm not doing it on a par because it's a diversionary tactic.
Understood.
But other footage from this trove is getting particular attention from both Republicans and conservatives. In one clip that was unveiled actually a few months ago, Pelosi expresses frustration with the lack of National Guard presence and even admits to some responsibility on the matter.
We're here until what? Until the National Guard decides to come and get rid of these people? Oh my God, I can't believe the stupidity of this. And I take full responsibility. We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
No, there's not a question of how they had. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
But another newer clip shows her walking with her security and staff through a tunnel under the Capitol. Here she expresses similar regret, saying the National Guard should have been present from the start.
How many times did the members ask, are we prepared? Are we prepared? We're not. Prepare for the worst. We're calling the National Guard now. Should have been here to start out.
Days before the 2021 riot, then President Trump reportedly offered National Guard to be deployed by Congress as an extra means of security. Then Speaker Pelosi reportedly refused that offer, and Trump spokesperson Stephen Chung told Newsweek that these clips further prove that Pelosi was responsible for the security failures that day. The latter clip was only unveiled after the documentary was turned over to the House Administration Oversight Subcommittee, currently helmed by Representative Barry Loudermilk. It also comes as the first rioter to enter the U.S. Capitol on that day was actually sentenced this past Tuesday to 4 years and 5 months in prison. Certainly a big week for information regarding January 6th. This is Ian Patrick reporting for FISM News.
Thanks for that report, Ian. At the same time, yesterday, the Supreme Court declined to reinstate the Biden administration's latest plan to lower student loan debt. The justices rejected a request by the White House to put the plan back into effect after it was blocked by the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals. In an unsigned order, the Supreme Court said that they will allow the Eighth Circuit Court to make a broader ruling with appropriate dispatch. The Department of Education's SAFE plan would have allowed borrowers to begin a faster track toward loan cancellation and lower monthly payments. According to estimates from a group of Republican-led states and the Congressional Budget Office, the SAFE plan would cost taxpayers anywhere from $276 to $475 billion. The Circuit Court ruling has received criticism from the White House. DOJ officials have accused the court of judicial overreach, noting that it gave a contradictory ruling to another circuit court. In a federal filing, a Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar told the court, "This is not how the judicial process is supposed to work."
Meanwhile, it looks like another company is abandoning its DEI policies, and this time it's a big one. That is Ford Motor Company. Now says it's taking a, quote, fresh look at those policies, as in an internal email, Ford CEO Jim Farley says the company has now withdrawn from the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index. Now, what that is it's an index that ranks companies based on their commitment to LGBT causes. That memo was leaked to conservative activist Robbie Starbuck, who has been pressuring companies like Ford to abandon DEI initiatives. His campaigns have partially helped lead to policy reversals from major companies, including Lowe's, John Deere, and Harley Davidson, just to name a few.
Our movement has legs. Companies are doing this, massive companies, because they understand exactly what has occurred over the past couple of months. Our movement is growing into a behemoth. You cannot stop us. We will inject sanity back into corporate America. The question for you as an executive is whether you want to do that the easy way or the hard way.
And lastly, to wrap up our show, a new advisory from the U.S. Surgeon General is now analyzing the mental well-being of parents across the country. Their newest advisory is urging the nation to take additional steps in safeguarding the mental health and well-being of parents. In an opinion editorial written by Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy, his office found that 33% of parents reported experiencing high levels of stress in the past month, compared to 20% of the general population. Additionally, a report from the American Psychological Association found that 48% of parents reported having overwhelming stress. The advisory read in part, quote, "I am calling for a fundamental shift in how we value and prioritize the mental health and well-being of parents. I am also outlining policies, programs, and individual actions we can all take to support parents and caregivers." Murthy recommended policy changes such as expanding access to subsidized childcare, paid family leave, and sick days for childcare as well. The Surgeon General also encouraged communities and individuals to expand or create programs that help parents with childcare. All right, well, that's our program for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and please visit FISMnews.tv for more content.
And as always, you can check us out on social media as well. We'll see you tomorrow with more news coverage.